So I played Sort the Court, a game that you can find on itch.io by Graham Borland. The game itself is entirely free. It's a name your own price type of thing, but you can download it entirely for free. And honestly, I thought it was kind of fun. If a little repetitive, well, let's get into it. So the entire gimmick of the game is that you run a kingdom, but everything that comes up to you, you can only answer with yes or no. And immediately, I was kind of grabbed by this. It's a simple concept that brings me back to the days of like Newgrounds Flash games where, they would take a simple idea and, really stretch to see how far it could go, and it could be really exciting. But at the same time, when you put yourself in such confines, it can restrict what you can do. So I was definitely interested to see if the game would sink or swim. Now, throughout the game, many different characters will come up to you. Some of them are going to have long, intricate storylines, and some of them will just show up to ask for a coin or to give you a coin. You have to juggle, increasing the population of your town, maintaining their happiness, and of course, making sure that you got plenty of gold coins in order to do the above. And while at first juggling the three can be a little bit difficult, sometimes you'll be asked to give too much gold and end up in the red. Sometimes people will offer you to get some gold back, but in exchange for a few souls. It's all a balancing act, but as time goes on, you find yourself more and more comfortably getting along. In fact, I gotta say, I really didn't have much trouble with this game, if any, really. I quickly ended up reaching a certain point that I could easily deal with most problems without much issue. Oh, I ended up spending a bit too much money? That's okay, I can sacrifice a couple people. I'm going to end up with more people at the end of it anyway, because the game will say that my kingdom is growing, so it ends up balancing itself out. And when that happens, it does end up losing some of its teeth. Now there really isn't that concern as much anymore, but the game does still try to throw things at you to keep you on your toes. You'll end up, with a dragon confronting you, and you've got to, get that all dealt with. You'll end up with this science group which promises you all these different things like an infinite gold generator, and you end up having to wait it out, constantly funding their expeditions to, keep working on the tech and to see if it works out or not. And of course, the main goal of the game, which is to join like this group of royalty where all the different kings and queens help each other out. And that in itself is the ultimate goal. Once you do that, you've beaten the game. But of course, with stuff like the dragon thing that was still lingering, even though I beat the game itself in an hour, I did stick around for a half hour more. Because even though the game was ridiculously easy, I was curious to see what would happen with some of the lingering stories. Would we be able to beat the dragon? What would happen with some of the scientific experiments? They mentioned a Project Lupin, and I was curious to see what would come of it. All that to say, this is a fun little game, given that it's completely free and it's only going to take like about an hour of your time. I'd say I highly recommend it. There are some things that I would love to see if something like this were ever to be expanded upon. I'd love there to be more room for failure. It felt like too many times the game was ready to catch me and put me back on my feet. There seemed to be... I don't know if there is a fail state, but it seems like you'd really have to work to make the game fail you, if it did. Now, unfortunately, Sort the Court isn't in active development, so me suggesting that is only if someone were to ever make like a similar type of game. And plus, of course, I'd love to see if there'd be more things. While the main stuff still kept me hooked, some of the people that you see do get a little repetitive after a while. So it would have been nice if there'd be more interactions. But again, this is nitpicking, as at the end of the day, I still had a good little short time with Sort the Court. Sure, there's ways that it can be improved, but that can be said about anything, and overall, with a positive experience, this is one that I would highly recommend checking out. There'll be a link in the pinned comment.